Hey guys, and welcome back to Dark Hollow. Um, I'm using this headset with a mic this time because the mic seems to do a little better than my other one. Um, but tonight we are going to be talking about another dark science experiment. Um, which I think any science experiments that have to do with children are are a little dark. This one is a psychological experiment, and just from the articles that I read and everything, I'm not sure that it really proved or disproved anything. Um, but it was held up strongly in a debate that um, movies and television, video games, music, that sort of thing, um, can bring out more violence in children. I'm not sure how much I agree with that. Of course, I was a kid of the 80s, and grew up watching the slasher movies and horror movies, and um, we were the generation that, we had Atari and Nintendo, and which, those games weren't really violent like some of the ones today that I do totally agree with age restrictions and things of that nature. But I know there was a big thing in the 80s and 90s of heavy metal music and death metal and things, and parents were trying to sue these bands and stuff because their kids committed suicide or their kids went out and done violent things, and the whole satanic panic of the 1980s, which I plan on doing a video on, just because I do remember a lot of that in junior high. I remember the rumors going around of a devil worshipping cult that was kidnapping young girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, and like, hello. Um, of course, if you know my hometown of Elizabethton, Tennessee, then you know that that was very highly unlikely. But then, that was a national epidemic, apparently. Everyone was, you know, all into this satanic worship cults and all this stuff, and people were scared to death. And anyway, so what we're going to be talking about tonight in this video is called the Bobo Doll study. Now, this is, like I said, a psychological experiment. It was done in a sort of a laboratory setting. It was a controlled setting. In 1961, the Canadian American psychology professor from Stanford University, Albert Bandura, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, conducted a controlled study to learn if social behavior, primarily aggression, was acquired by observation and imitation. To me, that is almost an obvious statement. The environment that a kid grows up in is definitely going to affect their behavior. If you are, especially very young children, because their primary environment consists of their major life role models, their parents, grandparents, their home environment. And I was always raised with the saying, monkey see, monkey do. Um, you're going to copy a lot of your parents' behavior, and that's why that was always said. But a lot of people don't remember the rest of that saying, which is monkey see, monkey do, monkey make a fool of you. Um, so if you're presenting a behavior that is not a very nice behavior, be it violent, be it maybe unsanitary, maybe uneducated, maybe maybe you curse a lot, maybe you just have really bad habits, or whatever. And of course, if you have really young children and they see their parents doing this, they're going to do it as well. And whereas maybe the parents only do it at home behind closed doors, the kids don't realize that. So, they'll be out in public showing that behavior, which is where the, monkey make a fool of you come in. Little antidote before I go get into this, because I think it fits right into this. You could tell it's not really a bad thing, because I raised kids. A lot of you all probably raised kids or raising kids. Um, Little kids repeat what they hear at home. That's how we learn our language. Is we mimic our parents' speech. My grandmother and I were in line at the store, and I was young too. I was only maybe 7, 8 years old. I wasn't very old at all. But I remember we were behind this woman and her little girl. And the little girl, maybe, I think my grandmother said at the time she might have been 4 or 5 years old, maybe. Um, but the little girl didn't want to leave because it was raining really bad. And her mom says, "Well, honey, you're not made of sugar. You won't melt." And her little girl says to her with the straightest, most serious face, "But mommy, shit stinks when it gets wet." And even me at that age knew that that was funny. That, I mean, not funny that, she shouldn't have said that, but funny that she said it because her mother was so embarrassed that she had said that. But, as I got older, I thought, well, she heard that somewhere. She had to have heard that, heard her mother or father or someone that was around her quite a bit say that, um, for her to be able to come out with it in such a matter of fact way, and knew the context in which it fit. It wasn't just something random. It fit into the conversation she was having with her mother. But that being said, that had to have been said around her at some point. Anyway, back to this. In 1961, the Professor Albert Bandura conducted his controlled study to learn whether social behavior aggression was acquired by observation and imitation. So, 72 children, 36 boys and 36 girls, ages ranging between 3 and 6 years of age, were first observed at the Stanford University Nursery School, so they could be rated on a 5-point scale for aggravation behavior in their everyday environment. So this, that they went to this nursery school every day. They were used to the teachers. They were used to the other kids. They were used to the rules. They knew, so they wanted to see these children in their normal environment. so that they would get an idea of whether they were already aggressive or passive or somewhere in the middle, because if you sit back and you watch a group of children um, that are around each other on a regular basis, they know each other. You can already see, even in kindergarten, preschool, you can see little groups forming. Kids already, they're already discovering what they like in other kids, what they don't like, who they want to play with, who they don't want to play with. Um, it changes over time, and as the kids become more developed, of course, it will change. Excuse me, but that was their first step. This would allow for the children to be grouped with others of the same level before the experiment, and therefore this type of experiment is known as a matched pair design. When the study began, the children were separated into 3 groups. Each group had 24 children, 12 boys and 12 girls. The first group was the aggression group, and the second was the non-aggression group, and the third was the controlled group. So the controlled group, we won't really talk a whole lot about the controlled group because the controlled group absolutely had nothing. I mean, they were just kind of left alone. As I go on, you'll see what I mean. The aggression group and the non-aggression group were interacted with differently, and then the control group was kind of not interacted with. Each of the first 2 groups were then divided into 2 groups of 12, 6 boys and 6 girls. Each of these groups would then have either a male model or a female model. So the children would have a model of the same sex and one of the opposite sex. The first group of kids, the aggression group, would be taken into a room of toys one at a time. Also in the room would be the adult model. The children, excuse me again, the children were allowed to play with the neutral toys, which included things like blocks and a tea set. And the adult model was on the other side of the room with neutral toys, including the Bobo Doll. Now, if you don't know what a Bobo Doll is, I'll try to put a picture up here along with a diagram of the way the children were split up, just so you can get kind of an idea of how they conducted this study. After a while, the adult model in the aggression group would be acting aggressively towards the Bobo doll, such as throwing the doll in the air, kicking the doll, even going so far as to hit the doll with a toy hammer. And the adult model in the non-aggressive group would simply play with the other toys, ignoring the Bobo doll. The children would then be taken into another room with special toys. After playing with these toys for a short time, they were told these were the researchers' special toys and were told not to play with them. This was to make the children angry or pull them into a position to become aggressive. The children were then taken to a room which contained the Bobo doll. So, we're going to take these kids in a room, and then we're going to let them play with some toys, and then we're going to tell them, no, you can't play with those toys. Which to me in itself is, that would be confusing to a child. That would be confusing to an adult. I mean, let's say, for instance, you take an adult. I don't know. Let's take an adult to. I don't know. What do adults like to do now? I stay at home too much. Anyway, we tell the adult, okay, look, you can go out and you can and do this. But then as soon as they're, all ready to go do it, or they're getting ready to leave or whatever, no, you can't go. Well, yeah, you're going to be like, well, why? What is... Whether it brings out aggression or not, I don't know. But in children, of course, if you have little kids at this age, I'm surprised they didn't just throw a tantrum right there. But, unsurprisingly, the children in the aggression group showed much more aggression than the other two groups. Also, boys showed more aggression if the model was male, and girls showed more verbal aggression if the model was female, and more physical aggression if the model was male. Next, the children were shown videos in which an adult model was acting aggressively towards the Bobo doll, but each video had a different outcome. The researcher in one video scolded the adult model for their actions. One video showed the researcher praising the model, and one showed the researcher simply walking out of the room and ignoring the behavior. Okay. So, I mean, maybe this has just become part of our psyche now as far as parenting or behavior or whatever it goes. I mean, maybe this is where it come from. I don't know. I mean, I grew up, if I acted out, I was from, either I was told to sit down, or I got my butt smacked, or I got grounded, or, I mean, there was always a punishment. And I think, parents from the beginning of time would not allow their children to misbehave. There would be consequences regardless of what you believed in corporal punishment or timeouts or, whatever. But like I said, maybe I don't think that's a new thing. And of course, that's the thing about being a parent too. I mean, you have to correct a child's behavior or they're never going to learn. They're children. They're not born with a book of knowledge of knowing how to behave. So, anyway, I'm going on a side rant again. When allowed to enter the playroom, the reward and control conditions imitated more of aggressive actions of the model than did the children in the punishment condition. Well, of course, if a kid sees another child or an adult being rewarded for bad behavior, of course they're going to imitate that behavior. You don't need a study to know that. You can, I'm not trying to equate pets to kids, but in some ways, if you bring home a brand new puppy and it pees in the floor, you want to correct that behavior. You don't give the puppy a treat for peeing in the floor, because then the puppy will equate, ooh, something good came from me doing this, so I'm going to continue to do it. Instead, you reward the puppy for going outside to pee, and that way they learn, hey, I'm supposed to go outside and do that. I'm not supposed to do that in here. Same thing with kids. If a kid, goes and breaks something, you don't say, oh, well, good job here, have a cookie, because then the kid's going to think, oh, I can break things, I can have a tantrum, I can hit people, I can do whatever the bad behavior is, and I'm going to get a cookie, or I'm going to get a prize. Um, Instead, no, you correct the behavior. You let them know the behavior is not appropriate and they can't do it. And, you know, the way that you want to do that, because I'm not going to get in a big debate over how parents discipline their children. I spanked my kids. I did not beat my kids. And if you don't know the difference between spanking and beating, then you should not be doing that. You stick with the timeout. Because if you don't know the difference, then that's a problem. Anyway, the children in the model punished group the had learned the aggression by observational learning, but did not imitate it because they expected negative consequences. Reinforcement gained by watching another person is known as vicarious reinforcement. So, many psychologists are very critical of laboratory studies of imitation, in particular because they tend to have low ecological validity. The situation involves the child and an adult model, which is very limited social situation. So, the child doesn't know this person. And that brought me back to what I said before. Kids, especially the ages they're talking about in this study, are more likely going to imitate their parents or grandparents, siblings, people they're around a lot, people that are role models to them every day, not just someone they've spent a few hours with. And there was no, interacting or interaction between the child and the model adult at any other point. Certainly, the child has no chance to influence the model in any way. Also, the model and the child are strangers. And this is quite unlike normal modeling, which often takes place with the family. Cumberbatch in 1990 found that children who had not played with a Bobo doll before were 5 times as likely to imitate the aggressive behavior than those who were familiar with it. And again, that seems to be a thing. I mean, if kids don't know how to play with something, they're going to look at an adult or an older child or to know how to interact with it. That goes for, new toys, new situations, new anything new like that. I mean, in new situations, children are going to look to whoever they recognize to see, how do I deal with this? What are my cues on how to behave? So I have a hard time with psychological studies, especially on children, and it just, I know I know things need to be done. This is why it helps our mental health care system and helps advance our mental health for our children, for adults. Um, and I guess the knowledge was what it was back then. But a further criticism of the study is that the demonstrations, really having some trouble talking tonight, are measured almost immediately. With such snapshot studies, we cannot discover if such a single exposure can have long-term effects. So, if a child is shown a behavior once, will it stay with them, or will it, kind of in the moment thing and then go away? Um, I don't know. I can't remember when I was 3, 4, and 5 years old, so I don't know if any of that carried over to me. I mean, I can remember, snapshots, I guess, of preschool or kindergarten, or major moments, I guess. But they were a repetitive thing. Um, so I don't know. That's, I guess, one of the criticisms. Um, and they also said it was possible that the Bobo Doll experiment was unethical. For example, there is a problem with whether or not the children suffered any long-term consequences as a result of the study. Also, although it is unlikely, they never know. So, but what do you all think? I mean, do you think that um, even though they're necessary, that children that young should be put into studies like that? I don't know. I am not a psychology major. I'm a mother. um, I've babysat a lot in my life, and I've, had different children with different behaviors. My youngest son was a handful, while my oldest son was, pretty quiet and subdued. I have babysat children that were the same way. There's some were, bouncing off the walls, wanting to fight all the time, while others were, you would never know they were in the room. Um, and these were siblings that had the same parents, had the same parenting. So, I don't know. It comes back to nurture or nature, I guess. Are we born with the personalities we have? Are they a condition from our environment? I honestly think it's a mixture of both. I think um, we're born with our brains wired a certain way, but outside influences and outside forces and circumstances and things can, lead to change. So, who knows? I mean, people have been trying to figure that out for a long time. Some of your very young killers and things that came from absolutely what we would consider normal family situations where there was no abuse, no violence, no neglect, no, and then you had kids that come out of horrible, awful backgrounds, and they are some of the most wonderful, caring, loving people that will do anything for anybody. Um, so I don't know. I mean, it's a question, I guess. As far as the video games and movies and music and things, like I said, I'm a child of the 80s. Horror movies, my favorite. Um, Not so big into the slasher. I mean, yes, I'm a Friday the 13th Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers child. Those movies I can sit and watch and watch and watch even today. I can go back and watch them. I laugh a little more now than when I used to, but I did not turn out to be a crazy serial killer running through the woods. So, I don't know. The video games, I have seen some that my son plays, and he's 24 now, going on 25. There's no way would I have let him play those at 9, 10 years old. Of course, they weren't around when he was 9 or 10, but no. If they had been, I wouldn't have let him. Like I said, the rating system, parents follow the rating. Know what your kids are playing. If you don't want them to play it, don't let them play it. There's reasons that psychologists and stuff say that these games can be dangerous for young kids. That being said, I think, in my opinion, don't, berate me or anything, but in my opinion, I think for a video game or a movie or a song or, music, television show, anything like that, I think if that is going to influence you to the point that you are going to do a school shooting, you're going to, randomly go out and start shooting people on the streets or beating up homeless people or all these crazy things that have been blamed on these video games, on these movies, there was something wrong to begin with. To be influenced in such a manner that you were going to act on it. There was something already wrong. And if parents, grandparents, or whatever would look back on your early childhood, they would probably say, yeah, there was some signs there that they probably shouldn't have been playing those games. Or they shouldn't, maybe we should have took them to talk to someone, maybe. Unfortunately, some parents don't want to go there because they don't want to take some of the blame for it. They don't want to admit, maybe I should have seen this. And then in some cases, it's hindsight is 2020, and you can look back and say, yeah, that should have been a red flag. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching the video. Please leave a like. Hit that subscription button if you haven't already. Every subscription helps. I'd really like to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we're at 7, which is great. 7, woohoo! I didn't think I would get that many. But like this video, share the videos. Let me know down in the comments what you think about these psychological experiments and the influence you think that movies and things have on kids and teenagers. And if you are someone that is suffering from suicide or dangerous thoughts of any kind, please call somebody. Reach out. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. Everyone has issues. Some are just maybe worse than others. But I'm sure if you talk to 100 people, 100 people could tell you different things that go on in their minds that would shock you. I myself suffer from depression and anxiety. I'll freely admit that I get help for it, and I, deal with it. So if you need that kind of help, please find it. It's available. It's out there. That being said, like I said, guys, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for your support. Please give this video a like, share it, subscribe, and I will see you all in the comments.